and welcome to my latest video. Last video was the set of coloured markers. We're on 40, I think we finished on 40. So add in the H1 CSS rule, remove the background colour property and the value to go back to the default white colour. So in H1, remove the background colour and the value to go back to the white colour. Right. Now it's time to add other details to the marker, starting with the first one. In the first marker div element, change the class 1 to red. Class 1 to red. Update the class 1 CSS target to new red class. So 2, 5. Oh no. It's not that at all. It's dot red demand. Aye. And update the RGB function in the red CSS row so that the red value is at the maximum. So the red's the first one, so it'll be 255. So that's red at maximum. Next, change the class 2 to green in the second marker div. So take 2 and put in green, and take 3 out and put in blue. So that's the classes we've got in the red, green and blue. So update the CSS class selector .2 so it targets the green selector. Oh, the green class, sorry. And we'll update 3 to the blue class. Make sure you've got a dot green, dot blue, dot red, etc. A very common way to apply colour to an element with CSS is with hexadecimal or hex values. With hex values sound complicated, they're really just another form of RGB values. So just another form of colour. So a value of colour, so in RGB 000 you'll get hexadecimal. So hex colour values start with a hash, mind the hash, do not forget the hash, mind the hash, do not forget the hash. So the hash makes the colour. Hash character, the hash targets it, hash character, and takes 6 characters from 0 to 9 in A to F. The first pair of characters represent red, the second pair represent blue, and the third pair represent blue. For example, hash 4B will be red, 53 will be green, and 20 will be blue. So in the green selector, set the background colour property to the hex colour code with the hex values of 00 for red, FF for green, and 00 for blue. So we'll take that out. Background colour hash 4B, no, it'll be capital B maybe, 53 20 semicolon, and you'll see it's went green. No, you can't see it's went green because that's not right. It's not that at all. That's just an example. Ignore what I just done. So 00 FF 00. That's it. Moving on, you may already be familiar with decimal or base 10 values which go from 0 to 9 hexadecimal, or base 16 values go from 0 to 9 then A to F. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, etc. and A, B, C, D, E, F. With hex colours, 00 is 0% of that colour and FF is 100% of that colour. So it'll be red, 00 will be 0%, F will be 100% green. So 00 FF 00 translates to 0 red, 100% of green and 0 blue, is the same as RGB 0, 255, 0 in brackets. Lower the intensity of green by setting the green value of the hex des to 7F. So change that to 7. The HSL colour model of hue, saturation and lightness is another way to represent colours. The CSS HSL function accepts 3 values: a number from 0 to 360 for hue, a percentage from 0 to 100 for saturation, and percentage from 0 to 100 for lightness. That's lightness. If you imagine a colour wheel, the hue red is at 0 degrees, green is at 120 degrees and blue is at 240 degrees. Saturation is the intensity of a colour from 0 or grey to 100% for pure colour. You must add the percentage to the saturation and lightness values. So hue, saturation and lightness. So hue is the first one, saturation is the second one, and lightness, so HSL. So hue, saturation and lightness. Lightness is the low bright, how bright a colour appears from 0% or complete black to 100% complete with white, 50% being natural. In the dot blue CSS rule, use the hue, saturation light or HSL for short function to change the background colour to pure blue. Set the hue to 240, the saturation to 100% and the lightness to 50. Right, so instead of the RGB we put HSL, so that's hue, saturation and lightness. The first one will be hue, so 240, saturation is 100% and 50% lightness, and you'll see you've got blue. You've learned a few ways to set flat colours in CSS, but you can also use a colour translation or a gradient on an element. A gradient is when one colour transitions into another. The CSS linear gradient function lets you control the direction of the transition along a line which colours are used. One thing to remember is that the linear gradient function actually creates an image element and is usually paired with the background property, which can accept an image as a value. In the dot red CSS rule, change the background colour property to background. Okay, so it'll just be background colon, oh, it won't be minus, right enough, it'll just be background colon, and then RGB, mind your brackets, 255, 0, 0, oh, space out, mind your comma, not a dot, semicolon. It should change to red. So the linear gradient function is very flexible. Here the basic syntax you'll use in this tutorial. So linear gradient, every time I try and do this it doesn't work. So linear gradient, bracket and bracket, and the gradient directions, the direction it's going to go in, 90%, 120%, etc., 90 degrees, sorry, and then the colour, and then the colour. So gradient direction is the direction of the line used for transition. Colour 1 and colour 2 are colour arguments, which are the colours that will be used in the transition itself. These can be any type of colour, including colour codes hexadecimal or hex, RGB red, green and blue, or HSL, hue, saturation and lightness. Now you'll apply a red to green gradient along a 90 degree line to the first marker. So if you watch the first marker, first in the red CSS rule, set the background property to linear gradient. So this time we take the RGB out, put linear, and make sure you spell this right, gradient. There you go, I did the linear gradient, brackets, and pass 90 degrees, so 90 DEG, comma, space, as the direction. I don't know if I need, I was going to say I didn't know if I needed 2 brackets or 1 bracket, but that's it. So that's the linear direction, your linear gradient, sorry. You'll use the RGB function for the colours of this gradient, and the linear gradient function use the RGB. So again, change the, oh no, wait a minute, cancel that, that's wrong. Cancel that. So I think it's wanting this RGB 255 for red, 0 for green, and 0 for blue. Aye, that's what it wants. Right, so it's 90 degrees, mind your comma, and then the next colour's RGB 255, 0, 0, and mind your brackets. You won't see the gradient yet because the linear gradient function needs at least 2 colour arguments to work. In the same linear gradient function, use the RGB function to set the second colour argument to pure green. So again, in between the two brackets, put RGB, RGB brackets, and they want us to put pure green. So red's the first one, 0 space 255 is green, which is 100%, 0, and that's it. And you'll see the gradient now. So it's like green half, and then it shades, and then it goes red. So as you can see, the linear gradient function produces a smooth red-green gradient, while the linear gradient function needs a minimum of 2 colour arguments to work. It can accept many colour arguments. Use the RGB function to add pure blue as the third colour argument to the linear gradient. So in between the two brackets, again, just be careful. RGB, 0 for red, 0 for green, and blue. I think it was blue, wasn't it? An RGB function, aye, pure blue, 255. 255. And you'll see it's blue this time, green in the middle, and red at the end. So colour stops allow you to fine tune where colours are placed along the gradient line. There's a length unit like pixel or percentage that follow a colour in the line gradient function. For example, in this red-black gradient, the transition from red to black takes place at the 90% point along the gradient line, so the red takes up most of the value space. So linear gradient bracket, 90 degrees, red, and then you put in the percentage, and then it's a comma, and then it's black. So in the linear gradient function, add 75% colour stop after the first red colour argument. So red colour, now I don't know if we need to put it outside the bracket or inside the bracket. So let's see, so 90%, comma. Right, so, oh no, it's 75%, isn't it? Where did I get 90 for? So you put it outside the bracket. Now that you know the basics of how linear gradient function and colour stops work, you can use them to make the markers look more realistic. And the linear gradient function set the gradient direction to 180 degrees. So this time we'll use 180 degrees instead of 90. And you'll see there's a red, there's a green, and there's a blue. So next, set the colour stop for red to 0%, the colour stop for green to 50%, and the colour stop to 100%. So, next set the colour stop for 0. So we'll put that to 0 for red. We'll put the next one to 50%. Comma. And we'll put this one to 100%. Now if I've got that wrong, so have you. So linear gradient 180, RGB 0%, comma, 50%, oh wait a minute, 0%, 50%, comma. Right, so wait a minute, so what did I do there? No, so linear gradient 180 degrees, comma, RGB 255, 00, bracket, and 0% with a comma, and then we'll go RGB 0, I know what it's wrong, right, so hold on, so 0, RGB 0, 255, 0, 50%, or maybe that commas, on the right bit. No, RGB. Right, so what am I missing? Linear gradient 180 degrees, comma, RGB 255, bracket, 0, bracket, 0. I do need a comma. There? No. Somewhere you don't need a comma, wait a minute. Right, so red and then 0%, right? Green and then 50%. Is that it, yeah? No. So wait a minute. So 50%, comma, space. Interesting. I'll get to the bottom of this. So, background colour, linear gradient, 180 degrees, so 180 deg, comma, RGB 255, 0, 0, bracket, 0%, comma, comma, RGB 0, 255, 0. Oh, we've no comma there. Yay! Got it! Well, just shows you one wee hang out and then it throws it all off. But once you get it, it's so fucking satisfying. Excuse the French. Now that the colour stops are set, you'll apply different shades of red to each colour argument in the linear gradient function. The shades on the top and bottom edges of the marker will be darker, while the one in the middle will be lighter, as if there's a light above it. For the first colour argument, which is currently pure red, update the RGB function to the values red 122, the value for green is 74, and the value for blue is 14. Right, start that again. Now that the colour stops are set, you'll apply different shades of red to each colour argument in the linear gradient function. The shades on the top and bottom edges of the marker will be darker, while the one in the middle will be lighter. Right, for the first colour, which currently is pure red, update the RGB function to be 122. I got it now. 122, 74, and 14. Right, that's fine. Now we're moving on. So modify the second colour with the linear gradient function, which is currently green. Pure green, update the RGB function so that the value is 245 and the value of green is 62 and the value of blue is 113. So again, we just get into the RGB brackets again. 245 for red, green will be 62, green will be 62 and blue will be 113. And you'll see that I've changed red, blue, green, red and blue. Right, so finally modify the third colour argument in the linear gradient function, which is currently pure blue. Update the RGB function so 162, the value of green is 27 and the value of red is 162, the value of green is 27 and the value of blue is 27. So red is 162, which is the first one. So red, green and blue. So red, green will be 27 and blue will be 27. Oh, no, don't do what I done. Just what I done there. 27. And you see it's changed again. The red markers look more realistic. Now do the same for the green marker. Use a combination of linear gradient function and hex colours. And the green CSS rule, change the background colour property to background. So background colon semicolon. I need the colour in there. So where does it tell you that? The red markers look much more. Now do the same for the green marker. Use a combination of linear gradient and the green CSS, change the background colour property to the background. tell you anything about colours, but on right 7F00. And you'll see that's changed again. Right, so for this marker you'll use the hex colours for your gradient. Use the linear gradient function and set the gradient direction to 180 degrees. And for the first argument use the hex colour with the value 55, 68 and 0D. So red will be 55, 55, green will be 68 and blue will be 0D. Right, so background colour, we want linear gradient, linear gradient. Oh. So say, make sure you spell it right. Linear gradient colon, and we need brackets again. So 180 degrees, comma, and then an ending bracket. I know I done that arse for elbow, as they say. Right, so I done. So linear gradient. Oh, it's me. So what? Hey, so that's what you do. I done that arse for elbow, but just have background colon linear gradient bracket 180 degrees, comma, and then the colour. So red's 55, blue's green's 68 and 0D is blue. So for the second colour I'm using a hex colour with the values 71 for red, F5 for green and 3E for blue. So again we need brackets. No, wait a minute. We need a comma, sorry. I think this is how you do it. F5, no, 71, F, that's because I keep trying it in hand key, 75, F, 71, F5, 3E, 3E. Aye, so you do, so you put it in the same brackets, you don't need different brackets. That's looking better, but the bottom edge of the green marker needs to be darker to add a little more dimension. And the same linear gradient function in the hex colour with the values 11 for red, C6 for green and 31 for blue as the third colour argument. So again it's a comma inside the brackets, hash, don't forget your hash, 11 for red, 6C for green and 31 for blue. And you'll see the greens, well, the second one's changed. Even without the colour stops you might not have noticed, but the colours for the green marker transition at some same points as the red marker. The first colour is at the start 0%, the second is in the middle 50%, and the last is at 100% of the gradient line. The linear gradient function automatically calculates these values for you and places colours evenly along the gradient line by default. In the red CSS rule, remove the free colour stops for the linear gradient function to clean up your code. Right, so we're just going to take 0 out. We're just going to take 50% out. Oh, we might need that comma, I'm not sure. And 100% out. And there we go. If no gradient direction argument is provided, the linear gradient function arranges colours from top to bottom or along a 180 degree line by default. Clean up your code a little more by removing the gradient direction argument with both linear functions. So we'll get rid of the 180, we'll bring that back, we'll get rid of the 180 and we'll bring that back. Just make sure you don't delete your bracket like I just done, and I'll do that again just to show you. Right, so, and then move on to the next one. So now you'll apply a gradient to the blue marker, this time using HSL, so hue, saturation and lightness as colour arguments. In the blue CSS rule, change the background colour property to background So again, we're going to change that to background, colon, HSL for hue, saturation and lightness. I wasn't sure what they wanted. So 240, 100%, and 50%. There we go, moving on. Use the linear gradient function and pass in hue HSL, so hue, saturation and lightness function, with the values 186 for hue, 76% for saturation and 16% for lightness as the first argument. So use the linear gradient function and pass in. Alright, so linear gradient, so that goes in front of that now. No, wait a minute, do we need brackets? Linear gradient, you do. So you need brackets round about the HSL. HSL. That's. No, wait a minute. Linear gradient 186. If I've done that wrong, you'll find it in a minute. 76% and 16%. No, I've not done it wrong. So you put the two brackets there and put 186, 76% and 16%. No, what I done the first time. Oh well. As the second colour argument, pass in the hue, saturation and lightness HSL function with the values 223 for hue, 90% for saturation and 60% for lightness. So again, I think we need to do bracket HSL 223, 90%, if I'm wrong you'll soon find it, bracket 60%. Right, so, no, I'm not wrong. So that's what you do. So again, if it wants the third colour, we need a comma, HSL, bracket, for the hue, saturation and lightness, 240 for the hue, comma, saturation 56% this time, comma, and 42% for lightness. That's lightness. Right, so now that the markers have the correct colours, it's time to build the marker sleeves. Start with the red marker. Inside the red marker div element, create a new div element and give it a class of sleeve. So inside the div element, so it goes inside. So inside, so that's inside. So div, create another closing div, or a closing div element if you want to call it an element, or you want to call it a, whatever you want to call it, a div. So class equals sleeve. Moving on. Okay, thanks very much for watching my latest video. It's appreciated. Thank you. Bye now.